Say yes to D&D. This time the non-sarcastic version. Hello, it's 10 o'clock. It is the 14th day of January. I am the grumpy guide to all things gaming, the sarcastic snake. That is the OGGM. And I just did a video called Say Yes to D&D. But I was being a little sarcastic. Maybe. Now, a slightly more serious take on the idea of saying yes to D&D. So what does that really mean? We're not talking about rules like I just did in the video. We're talking about just having the open mind that if a player approaches you and has an idea that the rules aren't really clear for, or there are no rules, or just, wants to do something that maybe you hadn't thought of, sometimes it's okay to say, yeah, go for it. I mean, make a die roll, I guess. And in fact, you should encourage that because it is so easy for players who are playing a role-playing game to just see the character record sheet and just think, that's it, that's all I can do. I don't have any points in infiltration, so I can't infiltrate. Or, well, my intelligence is only 9, so I guess I'm dumb. Or whatever. But really, there's nothing saying you can't infiltrate because you still get to roll the dice. You still get to add your dex mod if you have one. There's still a chance somebody else could help you. Any time you could roll a dice, you should roll a dice because you can always roll that natural 20 and then that just alters the physics of the game, right? Well, so saying yes really means encourage them to do things out of the comfort level of just what's on the character record sheet. And if somebody says something that you're like, I don't know what that is, I don't have rules for that, whatever. So I'm going to give you 2 examples, one where I used an example and one where I saw another DM use an example. So here's my example of saying yes. And this is something I do often is, open up a skill choice to skills that might not fit the skill choice. Like I can say, well, you could roll whatever skill you want for the situation, and I'm going to give you an answer based upon what skill you rolled. If you're rolling history, I'll give you a reference that is historic, depending upon what you roll. Because there's no bad rolls. Because even if you roll a 4, you're still going to get information. Doesn't necessarily mean the information is correct. So here's the example. I was running a game, had a young woman player who'd never really played before, so she didn't really know what she couldn't do. She was running sort of a barbarian type character. They came across a group of goblins, and for whatever reason, she was just like, okay, can I just jump? I've got this athletic skill. Can I just sort of Mario jump on one's heads, and then Mario jump onto the next one's head, and then Mario jump onto the next one's head, and, do some kind of damage? Because that seems cool and silly and ridiculous and barbarian-ish. And I'm like, I could say, no, there's no rules for that. But I said, okay, sure. The first one is a athletics check of 12. If you roll a 12, you have successfully squished him, and you do, D6 damage. And then, okay, you were successful for the first one. Now you want to jump to the next one. Now it's a D6, it's a DC 14 because it's going to be 2 higher. Your jump is getting a little less effective because you're going farther. And let's face it, goblins are not meant to be springboards. So now it's going to be a D6 minus 1. And, if she made the second one, then she goes through the third one. Okay, now it's a little bit tougher. So I'm going to raise the DC to 16. And you're going to do a D6 minus 2 because it's just, your momentum is slowing down. And she failed the third one. But still, I was willing to say yes to her idea, even though there's no rules for that. And it's really ridiculous because it was giving her more attacks than she should have had. But it sounded fun and it sounded different, so why not? Now, here's an example I saw another DM do a long time ago where... again, playing with individuals who weren't really, min-maxing or just sort of just trying stuff. They weren't really beginners. And there was an encounter, and one of them's like, I'm going to throw my blanket over his head. I'm going to try and get above him and throw my blanket over his head so he can't see me. and will be distracted for a round. And I was like, there's no really rule for blanket, but he's like, sure, why not? First, you got to roll to get above him. I guess you're trying to climb the wall or stand on something. So make an athletics check. And then to get a blanket on his head, that sounds like an attack. So roll an attack, and if you're successful, he is distracted for one round getting the blanket off. So the player was like, okay, sure, why not? I'm going to roll an athletics, which I don't have, but I'll roll it. And they rolled it, and then they threw the blanket and were successful and distracted the guard for a round. I mean, they could have just hit the guard with a weapon, but they decided to be unique and original and try something different. And the DM was open enough to say, well, there's no really rules for that, but yeah, sure, go ahead. So when I say yes to D&D or say yes to any role-playing game, it's really just encouraging them to think outside the box that is their character record sheet. Just because you don't have stealth doesn't mean you can't stealth, Andrew. Just because your intelligence is 9 doesn't mean you're an idiot. Most villagers, most normal people, intelligences are 9. So don't look at the character sheet and see the things you can't do. Look at the character sheet and wonder, well, can I do it? I'm going to try. What's the worst the DM can say is no. And you as a DM in any game should be open to encouraging them to think outside the box and think ideas like, okay, yeah, there's no rule for that, but make a dice roll. Whatever. I'm going to say yes because it just sounds fun. And at the end of the day, the goofiness of the game is about fun, I guess. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm your grumpy guy to all things gaming. If you appreciate this content, consider subscribing. Help me hit 300 subs by March and 500 subs by August 4th. I have a headache, so I'll talk to you later.